You heard him today. There is no evidence that there is any truth to this, but he said, I talked to Putin and he says that there was a drone attack at his home and that's a step too far. He believes what this man says in the same way that MAGA people believe what Trump says. So they're going to
Right.
believe that this happened, even though there is absolutely no evidence that it happened. And we have to get back to just the facts. That's why we have this show. Welcome to another episode of Just the Facts with me, Jill Wine-Banks, and another guest today who you've seen before, my friend and journalist, freelance journalist, Susan Berger. And I am very happy to have her with us today because I want to start this episode with discussion of what's going on in journalism. Obviously, all of you know about what happened with CBS canceling a segment that was ready for airing about CCOT, the horrible prison in El Salvador. And there's also stuff happening with ABC and with CNN. And so I want to get a journalist's perception of how we could wrap up this year and what we can do going into next year to protect freedom of the press. Susan, what do you think about what's going on?
Oh boy, it's been quite a year because I think we're really at a critical juncture with, public trust, how Trump has really tried to erode public trust and the political pressure. But I think we all have to remember how essential journalism is to democracy. And it's more important. And now it's even more important to me. It's more important than ever that we hold power to account and seek the truth and give voice to the voiceless. And, you know, we want to be fair. There were people early on during Trump's, first run who said, if you call him out for lying, you're biased. Well, it wasn't about lying. I remember hearing Marty Barron say it's about reporting the truth. It's the truth versus fiction. So it's been a tough year. It's been a really tough year.
It's been really hard. I
It's
remember in
been
journalism
really
school being trained to do, in the first paragraph, who, what, where, and why. And those are facts. That's not opinion. It is absolutely just facts. Hi there
Sorry.
yes, it's Winston.
No.
We love Winston, but he may get Frisbee going and then we'll have a real commotion.
I know. He hears a dog outside. I'm
Yeah,
sorry about that.
that's okay. So, and I've been reading articles and I reflect back on Watergate because things were very different then. We had fewer outlets and everybody reported the same facts. There was agreement on what was true, what was factual. And now we have anybody who has a computer can be a quote journalist. I wouldn't say they're journalists, but they
The
can
thing is, Jill,
report.
it's not just anybody. It's Trump who, he looks in a press conference, he'll look at the press and go, "Fake news, you're fake news."
Not
You know,
only
you're
that, but he is fake news. You heard him today. There is no evidence that there is any truth to this, but he said, I talked to Putin and he says that there was a drone attack at his home and that's a step too far. He believes what this man says in the same way that MAGA people believe what Trump says. So they're going to
right.
believe that this happened, even though there is absolutely no evidence that it happened. And we have to get back to just the facts. That's why we have this show. And throughout the year, we're going to try to rebut the things that are said that are false. And of course, as an undergraduate journalism student, I really believe in the importance of getting out the facts. And in the marketplace of ideas, you come to truth. And so I hope everyone here is paying attention to multiple sources so that you can evaluate what is and what isn't. If you're hearing it from one source and one source only, it's probably not true. But, I also want to talk about the two government departments that I was part of, the Pentagon and the Department of Justice. And I hope, Susan, that you'll have some questions for me, but let me just start with, we can start with the appointment of the heads of those agencies. I'll start with the Pentagon. Obviously, Hegseth is completely unqualified by anything in his past to be the Secretary of Defense. And they've renamed it the Secretary of War, which sort of shows you what their attitude is about this,
Right.
being the aggressor, not defending our country as they are supposed to do. And then you have to look at what he's done in terms of firing generals, firing the head of every um, military agency's inspector general, and all of the JAG officers in charge, the TJAG, the top general who heads the JAG Corps. And this is at a time when we need honest advice because, for example, orders are being given to do certain acts that I would say are clearly unlawful and that any legitimate TJAG would also agree is a violation of the laws of war, the rules of engagement, and humanity. And yet we don't have that because he has replaced people who were legitimate with people I
Right.
don't know, and I'm not going to form an opinion of them. But if they're not stopping this, then they are not legitimate.
You
What do
should
you think?
remind people that you were at the Pentagon. You
Right.
had a job. Tell them
Yes.
what you're, because I'm not sure
Yeah.
everybody knows.
I was the general counsel of the Department of the Army. And as such, I oversaw all of the JAG officers, all of the procurement officers, and all of the environmental Corps of Engineer lawyers. So it was over 3,000 lawyers in.
It's gotta be particularly horrifying to you.
It is
And
particularly.
let's remember that he kicked the press out of the Pentagon.
Yes. Okay. Well, that
Right?
relates back to you. He did.
Right.
And he said, you
Right.
can only report what we tell you. You can't ask questions. What's the point
Right.
of having a journalist? That's why most legitimate news sources have stopped being at those briefings because you can't just report whatever they say when you know that it may not be true. It's horrible. And let's look at, hey, we're both women. What he's doing to women in the military. Women in the military have a significant role and they should be treated like everyone else. If they have the physical qualifications for a particular job in the military, then they should be able to have that job. And what is he doing to women in the military? It is beyond belief. And sexual assault will only grow under his administration. I served on a committee looking at sexual assault in the military. And what we found was that people are afraid to report it because they will get pushback from the general who's in charge. Now the generals are stopping that, or they were, at least in the Obama administration. I'm sure that that's not true anymore. And so we're going to see a lot of bad things. And he has fired top women, other top generals, just randomly, it seems almost. So I think we have to be careful. We've also seen resignations, haven't we? The general who was in charge of the area where the drone attacks and bombings and shootings and killing of survivors of shipwreck were ongoing. Now, he hasn't said outright why he's left, but it seems like maybe he knew that those were unlawful orders and he didn't want to participate in it.
So Jill, do you think I mean, for me, this is not forever. I mean, I think Trump is losing support. He's not on top of his game anymore. I mean, so when this is over, are we going to get back to where we were? I mean,
Yes,
I know that there are still journalists doing really good work.
absolutely. And many of them have left. For example, the Washington Post, for example, Carol Leonnig is now with MS Now instead of the Washington Post because their credibility is shot.
I started at the Washington Post and I was first hired as a freelancer in 2014 and wrote continually since then. My very favorite editor, who was the health and science editor, was there for 40 some years. She left in August. Another one of my favorite editors left soon after that. You know, there was Phil Rucker, Ashley
Yeah.
Parker, Josh Dawsey, David Shipley, who was the
Ruth
editorial editor.
Marcus. Ruth Marcus, let's not forget. Yeah, so
Right.
many. And
So
you sent me an article, Susan, that was the 25 good things that happened in 2025. And while I do not fault the Washington Post for trying to find something to cheer us up, I would say that maybe 20 out of the 25 were
I
not
agree.
cheering me up. They were
Yeah.
horrible things and things that just you cannot. For example, vouchers. They said, oh, it's a good thing that we've gone to this ability to use vouchers instead of
Yeah.
public school support. That is the worst thing. I am a public school graduate. I know you are too. And it's so important to society to have a public school education where people meet each other and can hear different viewpoints. So I mean, that's let's just close with talking about maybe a little bit about the Department of Justice, which I would again start with look who's at the top. You have Pam Bondi as the Attorney General, Donald Trump's former lawyer. And then you have, of course, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former lawyer. And both of them act like they still are his personal attorneys. And then you have
Right.
Kash Patel as head of the FBI and Bongino as the deputy, although his resignation has been announced. So
Tell me
that's
if
probably
I'm
a good
crazy.
thing.
I keep thinking that down the road, when this is all over, these people are going to be held to account. I mean, they I think there could be criminal charges against them.
There could be criminal charges. There could for the lawyers. There could also be disbarment. Um, what they are doing, though, right now, in terms of the destruction of the rule of law, the effort they're making to eliminate judicial review of anything that the
Right.
executive does or that they do is really scary. And I think it's going to take a while because even if, and I believe this will happen, even if the Democrats take control of the House and the Senate in the midterm elections in 9 months from now, 10 months, 11, I guess it's 11, it's not till November. Even if they take control, he's still president and he can veto any legislation they pass to correct what's going on. And I don't think we can rely on the Supreme Court to step in. Yes, there are some cases that they are going to vote against him. They already said he couldn't deploy troops in Illinois. That's a good thing. But most of the things they've done have been bad. And Congress, I'm just going to have to, I said I was only going to talk about two departments, but okay, there's a whole different branch. Congress, what are they doing? Nothing. That's what they're doing. They are supposed to be in charge of, for example, spending money, appropriations, and
Yeah.
they're not doing it, declaring war. And they're letting him do whatever he wants, whether he's now bombing Venezuela, whether he's drone attacks on ships at sea in international waters. Congress isn't doing anything.
Right.
And I am very scared that it's going to take many years after 28 to get back to the democracy that I enjoyed as a younger person.
I hope not, but I'm still hopeful that things will turn around. I mean, I think there are enough people, and I know, for the journalists I know, everybody, it's like in your blood. I mean, a lot of them have left. There's a lot of good writing on Substack. There's great podcasts.
But
There's
there's
great stuff.
also a lot of bad stuff on Substack. I mean, yes,
Yes.
if you read
Yes.
Joyce Vance and Heather Cox Richardson and Robert Hubble,
Right.
I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning you because I just don't have time to mention all the good
Yeah.
ones. That's
Right.
great. And you're getting really good insight, analysis, and facts. But there's also all the right wing ones that are communicating things that are simply not true. And so
Right.
you have to read carefully to make sure you expose yourself to multiple sources and keep going. And by the way, going back to journalism, Susan, I played a radio host this week. I substituted for Joan Esposito on WCPT, Progressive Talk Radio 820. And I got to interview a lot of terrific people. And one of the most interesting was Billy Ray, who is a filmmaker, a screenwriter, who's done some fantastic things. Everybody look up Billy Ray, not Billy Ray Cyrus, but Billy Ray. That's his full name. Captain Phillips is one of his, and so many other great ones. And he's now helping messaging for members of Congress. And he says, look, as a screenwriter, what I do is I message. And at the end, I asked him, who did he think could win in 28? And I was surprised. He was very, very firm. He said, I think Mark Kelly. He
I know. I've
is the,
listened to I heard that. And I've
and
heard that from other people too.
yeah. So I'm looking very carefully at him, but I would love to hear from everyone watching this right now or listening as a podcast. Please go on my website, jillwinebanks.com, and send me who you think the Democrats should be looking at. Who do you think can win? Who is the right person? And I'd be very interested in hearing. But I was very impressed by, and I've been studying and I've talked to some people who are very involved in Arizona politics, and they think that he has a pretty good shot.
I've
So,
heard that. I've heard that too.
all right, folks.
Thank you,
Happy,
Jill.
happy holidays. I hope to be back one more time before New Year's Eve, but I want to wish you all a very happy New Year, and
Happy
let's
New Year.
go into 2026 with enthusiasm for making the change that we need. Thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye bye.